I knew something was off the second my daughter-in-law set that plate down in front of me. The roast was a sliver, dry at the edges, and the potatoes were the cold ones that had been sitting in the chipped Pyrex on the counter since I'd walked in. Everyone else at the table had the good cut, the one with the rosemary crust. I could smell from the foyer. My son didn't look up. My grandson, the little one, was scraping butter onto his roll and humming. I sat there for a second with my hands in my lap. Not because I didn't know what to say, because I did, and I knew if I said it right then, I'd cry, and I have not cried in front of that woman since the day she married into this family. Her name is Tasha, my son's wife. She has a smile that takes up the whole room when she wants something, and a face like a closed door when she doesn't. That night, the door was closed. "You're not very hungry these days, are you, Mama?" she said, sliding into her seat across from me. She always called me Mama in that voice, like she was being sweet and being mean at the same time, the way some women learn to do. I figured the smaller portion was better. "You said your sugar's been up." I had said that 2 weeks ago. To my son, on the phone, in passing. Funny how the things I say in passing come back as little leashes. I picked up my fork. I did not say anything. I cut a piece of the dry roast and chewed it slow, and I looked around that dining room, at the walls I had painted, at the china cabinet that came from my mother. And I thought, Margaret, that's not my name, but that was the word that came to me, the word a friend of mine used to say when she was about to lose her religion. "Margaret, you have been a fool in your own house." Because that was my house, the one we were sitting in. The deed had my name on it, even if I'd been living in the back guest room for 2 years. Let me back up. My husband, Roy, passed in the spring of 22. Heart, sudden, the kind of thing that happens between the coffee and the second cup. 41 years of marriage, and then a Tuesday morning, and then nothing. I won't talk about that part for long, because if I do I'll lose the thread, and tonight I have a thread to follow. After Roy was gone, my son, I'll call him my boy, because that's what he was to me, even at 44 moved his family into the house. It made sense at the time. The mortgage was paid off, the house was big, 4 bedrooms, and they had the 2 kids and a third on the way. He said, "Mama, you shouldn't be rattling around in there alone." Tasha said, "We'll take such good care of you." And I believed them, both of them, because I wanted to. The first 6 months were nice. Tasha cooked, the children climbed on me, my boy and I had coffee in the mornings before he went to work. Then little things started. The thermostat got turned up to where Tasha liked it, which was warmer than I could stand. My recliner, the one Roy and I picked out together, ended up in the garage to make room for the kids' play area. My cookbook collection, 2 shelves of them, some with my mother's handwriting in the margins, got boxed up and put in the attic because Tasha was going minimalist in the kitchen. I didn't say much. I told myself, it's their home now too, you have to share. Then it was bigger things. My checking account had been linked to my son's, just for emergencies, just in case. Roy and I set that up years ago, in case one of us went into the hospital. After Roy died, I never unhooked it. Why would I? He was my son. He started moving money, small at first, $40 here, $100 there, then $1,000 for Tasha's car repair, then $2,800 for the boutique she was opening up downtown, a little place that sold candles and overpriced denim, and I told myself, this is just a loan, he'll put it back. He did not put it back. He never even called it a loan out loud. And then there were the credit cards. I'd authorized him as a user on one of mine again, years back, for emergencies. He was an authorized user on 2. Tasha had been added to one of those without me knowing. My son said it was easier for groceries. I never argued. I just paid the bill every month and tried not to look too close at what was on it. The Nordstrom charge, the spa charge, the DoorDash, the DoorDash, the DoorDash, the DoorDash. I was paying for their life. I knew it. I just kept telling myself, this is what mothers do, this is what a grandmother does. You don't make a fuss about money when there are babies in the house. My mother gave to me. Roy's mother gave to us. That's how it goes. But there's a difference between giving and getting taken. I knew the difference. I just didn't want to say the word. Back to the dinner. So there I was, looking at my plate of leftovers, and Tasha, sweet as antifreeze, said, "Mama, I almost forgot I made an appointment for the spa Saturday. The girls and I, you don't mind picking up the tab, do you? They have that new lymphatic massage I've been dying to try." She said it like it was a question. It wasn't. My boy still didn't look up. He was cutting his roast. 44 years old, eating a steak his mother bought, in his mother's house, while his wife asked his mother to pay for a spa day. My grandson, the older one, Jordan, he was 11, he looked up. He looked at Tasha, then at his daddy, then at me. He's a quiet child. He sees things. I caught his eye for half a second and I gave him the smallest nod I could, just to let him know, "Grandma's fine, baby, you eat your dinner." I cleared my throat. I said, "Sure, honey, we'll talk about it." And I went back to chewing my dry roast. Tasha smiled. She'd won, she thought. What she didn't know was that I had made up my mind right then. Not in a hot way. Not in a way where I was going to start hollering. I made up my mind. The way you make up your mind, take a long trip. Calm, with a list forming in your head of everything you'd need to pack. I finished dinner. I cleared my plate myself because nobody offered. I went to my room, the guest room. And I closed the door and I sat on the edge of the bed, and I listened to my own breath for a long time. Then I opened the drawer of the nightstand and I took out the manila folder I had been keeping there for about 3 months. Let me tell you about the folder. A friend from church, a woman named Etta, had been telling me for a while that something was wrong. She'd lost her own husband 6 years before, and her stepson had taken her for nearly $40,000 before she figured it out. Etta said to me one Sunday, "Honey, you go to the bank. Just go look at your own accounts with your own eyes. You don't owe a soul an explanation for looking at your own accounts." So I did, quietly, over a couple of months. I'd take the bus down to the branch on Glenwood when I told them I was at the doctor. I sat with a young woman named Sasha, who pulled up every statement going back 2 years, and I just looked. I made photocopies. I wrote things down in a little notebook in my own handwriting. I matched the dates of the withdrawals to days I knew Tasha had been shopping. I matched the credit card charges to receipts I'd found in the recycling bin. I made a list of every dollar that had left my accounts that wasn't mine spending it. I won't say the number out loud even now, because every time I say it I feel a hot shame come up the back of my neck. Let's just say it was enough to buy a good used car. Enough that I should have noticed sooner. Enough. I'd also been talking, very quietly, to a lawyer. A black woman named Renee, runs her practice out of a building on Cherokee Avenue, comes recommended from a cousin of mine in Detroit. Renee and I had been on the phone 3 times. She told me, "Mom, you do not have to live like this. We can fix this in a week, but you have to be ready, because once you start, you finish." I told her I'd let her know. I had not been ready. That night, after the leftover roast and the spa request, I was ready. I called Renee from the bathroom with the fan running so nobody would hear. I whispered. I said, "Tomorrow morning, everything you said, I want all of it." She said, "Yes, Mom, be at my office at 9. Bring the folder." I slept. People won't believe that, but I slept. Better than I had in months. I think the body knows when a decision is made. I was up at 5. I dressed careful, my good navy blouse, the pearls Roy gave me for our 30th, the low pumps. I made my own coffee in the little electric kettle I kept in my room, because the kitchen wasn't a place I wanted to be that morning. I sat by the window and watched the grey come up over the back fence. By 6:30, the house was starting to stir. I heard Tasha's slippers on the hardwood. I heard my boy in the shower. I heard the baby start fussing. I heard Jordan thumping around looking for his shoes. I waited until 7 when my boy came down for his coffee. I came out of my room and I said, "Morning, baby." He said, "Morning, Mama," and reached for the pot. I said, "I'm going out for a while today. Errands. I'll be back this afternoon." He didn't even ask what errands. He said, "Drive safe." That was the last easy conversation we had for a long time. I drove down to Renee's office. The mist was still on the windshield. I had not driven that car much in 2 years. My boy had been doing my errands to help, and it felt good to have my hands on the wheel. The radio came on with some old Aretha song I hadn't heard in a while, and I let it play. I got to Renee's at 5 till 9. She came out and hugged me. We sat down. The folder went on her desk. She put her glasses on, and for about 40 minutes she just looked. When she finished, she took her glasses off and she said, "Mom, I want to ask you something, and I need you to think before you answer. Do you want to give your son a chance to make this right, or do you want to handle it like he'd handle it with anybody else?" I thought about it. I thought about my boy at 8 years old, the way he used to come home from school and put his head in my lap. I thought about him at 16, when his daddy had to whoop him for stealing a pack of cigarettes, and how he cried after, not from the whooping, but from the shame. I thought about him at 30, when he held his first baby and looked at me and said, "Mama, I didn't know I could love something this much." I thought about him last night, not looking up from his plate. I said, "Renee, handle it like anybody else. He had his chances. He used them up before he knew he was using them." She nodded once. Then she got to work. "Here is what we did, in the order we did it." I'm telling it plain because the plainness of it is the part I'm proud of. First, we went to the bank. Renee knows the manager. The accounts that had my son as a signer or authorized user, we removed him. From all of them, we changed every password and every PIN. We froze the joint emergency account and moved its balance to a new account in my name only at a different branch with a different debit card. We changed where my social security and my pension from the school district. I taught 4th grade for 31 years. Did I mention that got deposited? New account, new bank, his name nowhere on it. Second, the credit cards. I called every single one. I removed my son and my daughter-in-law as authorized users on every card. I told the customer service women on a recorded line that as of this date, no one but me was authorized to make purchases on any account bearing my name, and any charges made by anyone else from this point forward should be treated as fraud. I had Renee on 3-way for 2 of those calls, so there was a witness. Third, the cards in my son's and daughter-in-law's wallets, the ones that said authorized user under my name, would simply stop working at midnight. The bank does that automatically once the user is removed. I did not have to do a thing. The card in their wallet would just be a piece of plastic the way it had always been, only now they'd find out. Fourth, we went to the courthouse. The deed to my house had my name on it, but I had added my son as a beneficiary on the deed transfer on death form 3 years ago when Roy first got sick. That morning we revoked it. New form, my signature, notarized. The house, on my passing, would now go where I said it would go, and I'll get to that in a minute. Fifth, my will. I had a will from 2018 that left everything split between my boy and the grandbabies. Renee drew up a new one that afternoon. We didn't sign it that day, that needed witnesses and a notary together, but we made the appointment for Friday. Sixth, and this is the part Renee had to talk me into, we filed a report. Not a criminal one. Not yet. A formal documentation through the bank's fraud department noting unauthorized transfers from joint accounts. Renee said, "We may never use it. But we want it on paper, dated in case we need it. I signed. By 2 in the afternoon, every piece of it was done. My hands had shaken once when I was signing the deed revocation, and Renee had put her hand over mine and said, "Breathe, ma'am, you're doing the right thing." And I had. And I had. I drove home. I stopped at the grocery store on the way and bought myself one small steak, a ribeye, and a baking potato, and a little container of mushrooms. I had not bought myself a steak since Roy died. I had been eating whatever Tasha put in front of me. I got home around 4. The kids were watching cartoons. Tasha was on the phone in the kitchen laughing about something. My boy wasn't home from work yet. I went to my room and I sat for a while. I think I dozed off. I woke up around 6 and I heard Tasha through the door talking, getting louder. I caught the word declined, and then, "What do you mean?" and then a string of words, "I will not repeat in front of you." I came out of my room and walked to the kitchen. Tasha was off the phone, standing by the island, her face the colour it gets when she is about to make a scene. The card she'd been trying to use was on the counter. She saw me and she said, "Mama." The card got declined at the gas station. I had to leave the car in the lot. I said, She said, "Can you call them? It must be some kind of fraud alert." I said, "It's not fraud, honey. I took you off the card." The kitchen got very quiet. The cartoons were still going in the next room. The baby made a little babbling sound from the play yard. She said, "You what?" I said. "I took you off the card. I took your husband off the card too. And the other 2 cards. And the other 2 cards. And the bank account. I took my boy off the deed." She blinked at me. She actually blinked. I don't think anyone had said anything to her, plain, in a long time. She started to laugh, the way some women laugh when they don't know what else to do, and she said, "Mama, this isn't funny." I said, "I'm not laughing, honey." She said, "You can't just, we have bills. The boutique has a payment due Friday. The mortgage on the rental." I said, "Tasha, there is no mortgage on this house. This is my house. The rental you bought, that I co-signed for, I called the bank this morning, and they're transferring the loan into your name only. They had 30 days to do it without my signature on it. After 30 days, if it's not done, the bank will foreclose, and that will be between you and the bank. Either way, my name comes off." Her mouth came open and stayed open. She said, "You can't do this." I said, "You can't do it, baby. It's done." That's when my boy came home. He walked in through the garage door with his work bag over his shoulder, and he stopped because he could feel the room. Tasha turned to him and her face changed. The closed door opened. She said, in the voice she uses for him, "Baby, your mama has done something." He looked at me. He said, "Mama, what's going on?" I said, "Son, sit down at the table. Let's talk." We sat. Tasha did not sit. She paced. I told my boy everything. The folder, the dates, the amounts, the spa, the boutique, the DoorDash, the leftovers last night, the way she'd asked me to pay for her spa day with the casserole dish from my mother sitting on the counter. He didn't interrupt. He was looking at the table. His hands were on either side of his coffee mug like he was bracing. When I finished, he said, very quietly, "Mama, how much?" I told him the number. He closed his eyes. Tasha said, "Marcus." She said his name, but she had 100 different things to say after it, and none of them came out. I said, "I'm not pressing charges, baby. I could. Renee says I could. I'm not going to, today. But I want you to understand what I did today, and I want you to understand why." He said, "I understand why." He said it again. I understand why. He put his head in his hands. He said, Mama, I knew it had gotten bad. I told myself it was fine because you never said anything. I said, Son, that's the part you've got to sit with. You knew and you let it. He started to cry. My grown boy, he cried into his hands at the table where I used to feed him cut-up hot dogs. Tasha said, Oh, for Marcus, get up. Your mother is being dramatic. We will figure this out. We will sort it out in the morning. He looked up at her. He said, Tasha, sit down. She did not sit. He said, Sit down. She sat. He said, I need you to be quiet right now. I need you to be quiet for 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. She opened her mouth. She closed it. I'll tell you something. In 16 years of watching that woman wrap my son around her finger, I had never seen him speak to her like that. Not once. I sat there at the table, and I felt something in my chest that I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't joy. It was relief. That night, late, after Tasha had gone to bed, my boy came to my room. He knocked on the door soft, the way he used to when he was a teenager and wanted to talk about something he couldn't talk about at the dinner table. He sat on the end of my bed. He said, Mama, I'm sorry. I said, I know you are. He said, I don't know how to fix this. I said, You can't fix what I did today. That's done. You can fix yourself going forward. That's the only thing in front of you now. He said, Are you going to make us leave? I sat with that for a minute. I said, I'm thinking about it. I'm going to take a few weeks to think. I want you and the babies to stay. The babies haven't done anything wrong. They're my grandbabies, and this is the only house some of them remember. But things in this house are going to look different, and I have not decided yet about your wife. He nodded. He said, Whatever you decide, motto you decide, Mama, I'll respect it. I said, Good. Because it's coming whether you respect it or not. He laughed, a wet little laugh, and he reached over and squeezed my hand and he left. The next morning, I made my own breakfast in my own kitchen. I cooked that ribeye for breakfast with 2 eggs over easy, and I drank my coffee from the cup my granddaughter painted for me at the pottery place last Christmas. Jordan came down and saw the steak and his eyes got big and he said, Grandma, are you having steak for breakfast? I said, Baby, I am. He said, Can I have some? I cut him a piece. We ate it together at the table. He didn't ask any questions about the night before, even though I know he heard some of it. He's a smart child. He knew something had shifted, and he was watching to see if it had shifted somewhere safer. I think he decided it had. I'll tell you the rest quick, because the rest is the long part of life, and we don't have all day. Tasha and I had a sit-down a week later, just her and me, with Renee on speaker. I laid out the conditions. If she wanted to stay in this house, she would treat me like the woman whose name was on the deed. She would speak to me with respect in front of my grandchildren and behind their backs. She would not ask me for money. She would not ask me to co-sign anything, ever again. She would close the boutique, because I had looked at the numbers, and that boutique was a hole she'd been pouring my money into for 2 years, and she would get a job, any job. She had a college degree she was not using. She could use it. She cried. She got mad. She told me I was destroying her marriage. I told her, Honey, your marriage has been getting destroyed for a while now, and I was the one paying for the destruction. She didn't have an answer for that. She agreed in the end. Mostly because she had nowhere else to go and she knew it. Her own mother had passed. Her sister was in Atlanta and wouldn't take her. She agreed. She closed the boutique. She got a job at a community college doing admissions. She is, last I checked, doing it well. I will not say she has become a different woman, because I don't know that she has. But she has become a quieter one in my house, and that is enough for now. My boy, my son, he is in counselling. He started about a month after that night. He goes by himself, then with his wife, then by himself again. He has been paying me back in small amounts every month. Not because I asked him to, because he asked me if he could. I told him yes, and I told him the money would go into accounts for the grandbaby's college, and that's where it goes. He has paid back about a third so far. I think he'll get there. Jordan, my smart, watchful grandson, comes to my room some evenings now and reads with me. He's reading a book about a boy who runs away from home and lives in the woods. He told me last week, "Grandma, I like that you stand up for yourself." I said, "Baby, you learn how to do that early. Don't wait as long as I did." He said, "Yes, ma'am. The new will, by the way, I'll tell you because you've stuck with me this long. The house, when I'm gone, goes to my grandchildren in equal shares, held in trust until they're each 25, not to my son, not to his wife, to the babies." My boy knows. He says he understands. I think part of him is relieved. A man who has had things handed to him for a long time sometimes feels a kind of relief when the handing stops, even if he doesn't know how to say it. Renee and I still talk. She calls me Mom, even though I've told her 100 times she can call me by my name. She tells me I'm one of her favorite clients. I tell her she's one of my favorite anything. Etta from church, the friend who told me to go look at my own accounts, passed last winter. I miss her. I sat with her in the hospital the last week of her life, and I held her hand and I told her, "Etta, I did what you told me. I went and looked, and I'm okay now." She squeezed my hand. She couldn't talk much by then, but she squeezed it. I am 68 years old. I have lived in this house for 36 years. I will, God willing, live in it for many more. The thermostat is back where I like it. My recliner is back in the den. My cookbooks are out of the attic, on their shelves, where my mother's handwriting is in the margins for anyone who cares to look. If you are watching this and somebody in your life has been eating your steak and feeding you leftovers, I am not going to tell you what to do. I am not your mama. But I will tell you this, plain, the way Etta told me. Go look at your own accounts. Go look with your own outs. You do not owe a soul an explanation for looking at what is yours. The morning after a long night is called dawn for a reason. The light comes up whether you're ready or not. And when it does, you get to choose what you do in it. I chose to be the woman whose name was on the deed. You can choose too. Where are you watching from tonight, baby? Tell me in the comments. I read them. I read everyone. And if you've got a story like mine, you tell it. There's somebody out there who needs to hear it from somebody who's been through it, and it might as well be you. I'll see you next time. I have sat with this story for a long time before I told it the way I told it tonight. And the thing I keep coming back to, the thing I want to leave you with, is this. Nothing that happened in my house happened all at once. It happened the way a slow leak happens in a roof. One small drop, then another, then a stain on the ceiling you tell yourself you'll deal with next month, then a whole section of plaster on the floor one morning. By the time Tasha set that plate of cold leftovers in front of me, I had been ignoring drops for years. Every time I let a charge go without asking, every time I let my recliner sit in the garage without bringing it back in, every time I called my own son and got voicemail and didn't call again, those were the drops. The dinner was the plaster. I want you to understand something because I think it matters more than the part where I went to the bank. Marcus did not turn into the man at that table by accident. I raised a good boy. But I also, after his daddy was gone, stopped expecting anything of him. I let him take because I was lonely and because giving was the one thing I still knew how to do. That is on me. Tasha saw what I would tolerate, and she walked through the open door. That is on her. And my boy stood in the hallway and watched her walk through and said nothing. That is on him. 3 people made that dinner happen, and one of them was me. The reason I tell it that way is because I do not want any woman watching this to think that what saved me was being clever. What saved me was being honest. Honest about what I was paying for. Honest about what I was afraid of. Honest with Renee and with Etta. And finally, hardest of all, honest with myself in the bathroom with the fan on. There is a kind of strength people do not talk about much, and it is the strength of sitting still long enough to see what is true. It is not loud. It does not feel like strength while you are doing it. It feels like sitting on the edge of a bed at 68 with your hands in your lap, listening to your own breathing, and admitting that you have been a fool in your own house. That admission is where everything else came from. The folder, the lawyer, the steak I bought for myself on the way home. None of it would have happened if I had not been willing to say the plain word for what had been going on. So if you take anything from an old woman tonight, take this. Look at what is yours. Say the plain word for it, and then move, the way the sun moves at dawn, steady and on time and without asking permission from anybody.